everybody, welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Allie.
And we said at the end of the podcast last week, Allie, this is the meat. It's getting real good right now. We've got everything. I mean, we're talking NWSL, we're talking WSL, we're talking Champions League. We're going to briefly chat about the Asian Women's Cup. Literally everything.
Yeah, it's all that little schism where it's all coming together and there's a lot to talk about for a very brief moment.
All right, should we get to it? I don't know what to do first. Maybe I want to briefly tell everybody what I just told Allie before we hit record, which is I watched the Emma Hayes documentary on her last season with Chelsea. It's kind of like trying to document the quest for, what do you guys call it? A quadruple?
The quadruple, yes.
The quadruple. I feel like coming off of the Olympics, I called it a quad, and I thought about figure skating. So it's about Chelsea's quest in their final season with Emma Hayes for the quadruple. Spoiler alert, it didn't happen. However, it's still a great documentary. I really loved it. I am not a Chelsea fan. I still absolutely loved it. Highly recommend. If you haven't seen it, go see it. I can't tell you where to watch it because I saw it on an airplane. Don't know why it was on an airplane, but I love that it was.
I think it's on Apple TV. I've had a quick Google now. It's called Emma One Last Dance. And I've had a Google, and I think it's on Apple TV. I think that's where you can watch it universally.
After that documentary, I was like, I would run through a wall for this woman, and I wish I was coached by her. That's how I feel. I was ready. I watched it on the plane to go do commentary, and I was like, I'm so ready. Like, every game matters. Every second counts. Like, let's do this. It was fantastic.
That's so funny because I don't think there's probably one of the most divisive figures in women's football is Emma Hayes.
Would you use the word divisive?
Yes.
Why do you think she's divisive? I don't think she's that divisive.
She's divisive because, and I kind of got why she did it, but she used to do press conferences and say really stupid things. And the point was to get a conversation going, but it just made her seem stupid. For example, I think that the goals should be shorter in women's football. No, Emma.
I obviously don't think she believes that.
No, that's what I mean. Like, she'd say things, and I get why she's trying to do it, is to get the conversation going, but it just made her sound stupid. And we know she's not. So I think she did herself a disservice, and that is why she is divisive.
That's why you think she's divisive. Okay. I don't think she's that divisive. I don't know. I learned a little bit about her in watching the documentary. And so I highly recommend a little peek behind the curtain. Anyways, moving it along, Allie, let's talk because we have to briefly mention what happened in the world of international football before we get into the club and the domestic leagues.
Yeah, well, no, we absolutely do. So the Asia Cup has come to its dramatic conclusion, and Japan are the winners of the Asia Cup. They beat Australia 1-0 with an early goal, and they just managed to hold on. So this is a huge deal because people don't know the Asia Cup is basically the Asia and Oceania equivalent of the Euros. This is a big deal.
And it's World Cup qualifying.
It is World Cup qualifying. So out of that, we have now got a couple of teams that are guaranteed to join Brazil as hosts. We have got obviously Australia and Japan, but also China, South Korea, North Korea, and the Philippines.
We love it. I will say the final was played at Sydney Stadium. Shout out to Sydney Stadium for those of us that were at the World Cup or remember the World Cup. Plenty of games were played there, and it was the biggest crowd in Women's Asian Cup final history, 74,397. That is a sold-out Sydney Stadium, everybody. We love it. We love it. We love it. The Matildas fans love their Tillies, and they showed out strong for them. It was beautiful to see Sam Kerr back on the pitch, like in full force as well. If something about it just made my heart full again. It felt right.
And because we have so little shout about, I'm going to shout out that Rico Ueki, West Ham player, got golden boot. So I will take that as a win for my team.
I mean, okay, so we'll come on to this because we're going to talk about Chelsea and the WSL, but I do think it's interesting. Sam Kerr got a lot of minutes. I saw a stat somewhere. The number of minutes that she played throughout this tournament is the same number of minutes she's had in this entire WSL season. So think about that as an entire WSL season. That started in September. 6-ish months of the WSL. She played the same number of minutes over 6 months as she just played in, I don't know how long this tournament's been going on. Let's call it 3 weeks. If we're going to be generous, 4. If we're going to be not generous, 2, but doesn't matter. That is wild. And she did have a quote saying, like, at the end of the semifinal, she was about to be asked to go off. Like, she looked at Joe Montemiro and she was like, I need to be off at this very second or I'm going to collapse. And then the whistle blew and she was okay. And she was like, I literally didn't have another minute in me. But she put it all out there on the line for the Tillies. And I do wonder what this looks like then for Sam Kerr for the remainder of the WSL season. If she's fit enough to play those minutes, let's get on it, Chelsea.
Yeah, no, I do think there is still an element of managing minutes because, and when we talk about Chelsea, we'll talk about Chelsea, but they are in another injury crisis.
Yeah.
So maybe they don't want to push Sam too hard because if she gets injured again, then they have like no strikers.
Now would be the moment to push, though. And we'll come on to it.
We will go into it. So we're going to start off with the NWSL because NWSL. It was an insane weekend of football results and everything else that goes with it. So we're going to be doing a roundup of that. We are then going to take you around the world and give you an update on the different leagues. We are going to talk about WSL. We're going to talk about the title race because it could be over by the end of this weekend, as well as Chelsea and what is going on with them. And then finally, we're going to briefly talk about Champions League and the matchups because that the first half will have happened by the time you've listened to it or the night of. So we will go into that.
We're going to kick it off with the NWSL because, as Allie said, it NWSL'd. It was after dark times, I don't know, 3. How many cards were there this weekend? Uncountable. 6 red cards total across the first 2 weeks of NWSL play. That's the most for the first 2 weeks of any season ever in the NWSL, which is no surprise because 6 red cards is an obscene number of red cards. They weren't all straight red cards. Some were second yellows. Some were, in my opinion, rightfully given. Some were, in my opinion, stupidly and wrongfully given. So we'll get into that too.
So I did some maths on this. So
yeah, I'm excited for this. I got a lot of texts from Allie today being like, I'm doing the maths for us. And I was like, okay, I'm excited. I don't know what this means, but hit me.
I'm doing maths. So last season, there was 11 red cards total from the NWSL. So the fact that you were already at 6 and it's only been 2 weeks is crazy. There was 25 yellow cards last weekend alone. You are now up to 40 yellow cards over the 2 weeks and 6 red cards.
That's crazy.
Exactly. So I told you I'm doing the statistics. In comparison, the WSL has been playing for 8, ignoring Leicester and Arsenal because they've still got a couple of games in hand, as do Brighton. But for most part, most of the teams have played 18 games. There has been 274 yellow cards in the WSL and 6 red cards. So you're already equaling, after 18 weeks, the red card total of the NWSL, which means that the WSL is averaging about 15 yellow cards a weekend. You guys are averaging 20 yellow cards, and it's only been 2 weeks. So I want to talk about it because I'm like, are your referees more harsh? Are ours more lenient? What is going on that is causing this many, like, the discrepancy?
Oof. It's a good question. I think it's a little bit of both, I suppose. I mean, you can look at some of these red cards and they had to be red cards. There's just no denying it. So perhaps it's a little sloppiness on the part of the players and coming back strong. But yeah, I can't sit here and say that every yellow card I saw handed out was rightfully handed out. I think that I didn't see, usually like to see from referees at the very least in the beginning of the game, hopefully throughout, but at the very least in the beginning, you like to see them having a talking to with a player, right? Somebody goes in hard. Okay, we're going to have a talking to. I'm not just going to reach in my pocket immediately. That doesn't happen. I haven't seen that happen. It's card immediately. I saw some talkings to at the end of the game, but I think we're a little yellow card happy. I think we're just a little card happy in general. And I mean, it's just bad for the game. It leads to more substitutions because you can't have that many players on a yellow card on. It leads to worse football then because you're making all of these substitutions that you're forced to make that you weren't going to make. You have to change up how you were playing. It's just, I don't love it. I actually have been saying this about the trend in soccer for a while. I think for the past 3 years, the trend is more and more and more yellow cards are being awarded. And I think we talked about this in the World Cup where I was like, this is the trend. And if this trend continues, we're going to have to change some rules in terms of how many yellow cards you're allowed to have in the group stage of tournaments because nobody's going to be available anymore because everybody's going to be on at least a yellow or maybe two and then miss some rounds in the later stages. So I guess in short, as much as I hate to say this, because it's so hard to be a referee, and I think they do a great job, and we're all human, they've been a little card happy.
Little fun game for you. Can you name the team that got the most yellow cards last season in the NWSL?
Utah. I know this, actually. It was Utah Royals. Yes. I did commentary on the World Feed this Sunday for Utah Royals hosting San Diego Wave. And I did read a fun fact in all of my preparation that they were the most highly awarded or the most highly carded team last year. But they were, I believe, the only team in the first weekend of 2026 to not get a yellow card. So what do they go and do weekend 2? Yellows all the way around. I don't even remember. I think it was 4. I think it was 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe it was 5 total. I think 4 players were on yellows at one point, and then a second yellow was awarded. If my memory serves me correctly, maybe I should pull out my notes. Anyways, we'll come on to that. But just yeah. Do you agree with my take that they've been a little card happy? You've gone to watch some of the games that have been at your time.
Yeah, no, I've absolutely got to watch it, and I think you're right. I do think there is something that is I don't know. I think there's clearly trying to stomp out bad habits from players, but I don't think this is the right way to do it. Very quickly, final fun fact, just because this interests me. Last season in the WSL, do you know who was the one with the most yellow cards? It will surprise you.
Well, Katie McCabe does play for Arsenal. Arsenal?
No, they are actually one of the least.
Oh, okay.
The team you wouldn't think of.
I'm gonna. Well, I feel like my inclination is to say maybe more of a bottom of the table team. Did they just get relegated?
They did not.
West Ham?
Nope. Brighton.
It was Brighton.
Brighton had 41 yellow cards
tisk,
last
Mike.
season.
Mike, for the record, Mike knew that.
Yes, 41. The second one was Manchester United. But yeah, 41 yellow cards, 2 red cards last season for Brighton.
On a really real note, and I don't mean any disrespect to any head coaches when I say this, but I do think it's really telling for a team how many cards they get, how many fouls they commit. Are you professional? Are you controlled? Are you a well-coached team? I think if I look at a team and I think that and I see that they are leading whatever league they're in cards and fouls, that's never a good thing. It means that that the games are probably out of control for you. That's not a good thing. And I think that's fair. The games were pretty out of control for Utah for the majority of last season. They did better in the last part of it, but they were. All right, should we get on to it? We have some fun questions, and then we're going to do a little scores roundup and chat briefly about each game.
So we saw this weekend Orlando and Denver drew, as did Racing and Washington. Portland beat Seattle 2-0. Houston beat Boston 3-0. Gotham, North Carolina was a draw. Bay lost to Angel City 3-1. Chicago beat KC 2-1. And Utah lost to San Diego 2-1.
So much to discuss. All right, let's get into it.
Okay, result you were most shocked by this weekend?
It has to be Chicago beating Kansas City. And anybody that doesn't say that is lying, because Kansas City are the defending Shield winners. Chicago were not just worst in the lead, but they were so far from everybody else last year that there wasn't really even hope that they would be a playoff team this year. That's where we are with Chicago right now, that it's okay, we just want them to get a little bit better so that they're not so down and out. And then they beat the defending Shield winners in their home in the Chicago home opener. Like, we're going to talk about what the heck is going on with Kansas City. But it has to be that scoreline. I will say Portland pulling it out by going down to 10 players and then going down to 9 players. That's obviously a wild result, but I'm so sorry that is trumped by Chicago beating Kansas City.
See, I would give it to Portland v Seattle, but that's because I watched the Chicago Kansas City game, and I will say when you see how they played, I don't think you could have had Kansas City play for like 300 minutes and they was not have scored again.
Okay, so let's just get into it. Because we were going to talk about it anyways. Why? What is going on with Kansas City? Because yes, they got 3 points in weekend 1, but they conceded first. Utah scored, and Kansas City pulled 2 out, and they ended up getting the 3 points. And I think you can just look at the table after week 1 and be like, Kansas City, they're rolling. Here we go. But I think we saw some cracks showing in week 1, and then here we go into week 2. And even though we saw cracks in week 1, I did not expect this. So what did you see from Kansas City in this game, Allie? Because they were injured, but they're getting a lot of players back already, other than Tamashawinga. And B, even with those injuries, you look at their lineup and you're like, you shouldn't be losing. So what was going on?
Not a lot, and that was the problem. Because I watched this game and like their midfield collapsed and didn't really do much. The goals that Chicago got were stunning, and to be honest, I don't think there was much really that Lorena could have done to save them. But so it wasn't like, tap-ins or anything like that. But it's just that there was no spark, there was no firepower, there was nothing up front. Their midfield let them down. Defensively, they actually weren't too bad, despite what the scoreline says. But genuinely, it was the firepower up front. And like I said, they could have been playing for another 300 minutes and they wouldn't have been able to score again.
Unbelievable. I mean, you said their midfield was non-existent. Debinya, LaLabonta, Croy Bethune. That midfield's non-existent? Like, what is going on? You have Allie Sentner up top. She can score. She doesn't even need anybody else. Just put the ball at her feet, put her at the top of the 18. She'll put one in. Like, it does not make sense.
No, I think they're taking a minute to. Whereas I feel like they came out of the blocks last season and were like front runners quite early on, this season it very much seems that they were like they're still warming up, they're still clicking, they're still trying to find something, but I don't know what that is.
Expected goals. So the scoreline was 2-1. Chicago obviously won, as we said. Chicago went up 2-0, and Kansas City got one back, but they couldn't get another one back. And I say that just to put a reference point now to get into the statistics. Expected goals, 1.3 for Chicago, who well outperformed their 1.3. Kansas City expected goals, 1.95. We can certainly round that up to 2. They had more shots, 10 shots, but only 2 of them were on target. Chicago had 2 shots on target. They both went into the back of the net. So I know you said that the shots were unstoppable for Lorena, but she was goalkeeper of the year last year. She hasn't really shown up yet this year.
It is concerning, I would say, if I was a Kansas City fan, in the fact that you are finding yourself going down. I know we're only 2 games in. I know we can't make sweeping statements. But considering how dominant they were last season, the fact that in both your games, and yeah, you managed to turn it around last week, but the fact that you're going down early, you're going down first, you're not keeping these clean sheets, you're not doing what you did, I would be concerned. You need to make some tweaks because it's still a short, even though with the added teams, it's still a short season.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of losing streaks and then your season is pretty much over and you're going to do a Gotham and squeak yourself into the playoffs.
Lucky for them, pretty much everybody who they thought was going to be their rival at the top of the table is just hanging out either mid-bottom of the table with them. So let's move it along to those. We talked about who we were most shocked by. Result we were most shocked by. What's the team, I guess on a positive connotation, Allie? Let's talk about the team we're both most positively surprised by.
Portland.
Yeah, it's a good answer. That's a good answer.
Because we wrote them off, let's be honest.
Of course we did. They had like 24 hours with their brand new head coach. We'd be stupid to not write them off.
Well, that's exactly it. They had barely got time with their new head coach. Last season, defensively, they were shocking. They didn't have the greatest goalkeeping record. They conceded one of the most in the league, and they just hadn't been up to where they were. So yeah, I was convinced that they were going to be, Chicago level. They were going to be down here, but they've actually really surprised me with the grit and determination that they've had. Yes, they went down to 9 players this week.
Absolutely insane.
Wild. But even before that, last week's result, you didn't expect them to get a result.
A smash and grab at Audi Field, the last thing anybody expected. Like, we thought Washington was going to roll over them. Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, so the fact that Portland are up there in the top, along with San Diego. So, yeah, so for me, the most positive surprise is probably Portland.
That's a great answer, I feel like. Okay, so notably, Reyes got a red card in the 60th minute for Portland. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to rewind all the way to the 9th minute when the first red card was awarded to Portland. So they were playing with 10 for the majority of the game because that was a 9th minute.
They were, and that one I thought was stupid. If you watch the game, I thought that one was crazy because it was literally 2 yellow cards in very quick succession. Because you got a yellow card for the foul, and then she got a yellow card for mouthing off at the ref. And I'm like, if you've just been given a yellow card for a foul, shut up.
I was wondering if you meant that was stupid on her behalf or on the ref's behalf.
No, on her. Well,
it's hard because we don't know what was said, so it's like this could be very warranted,
Yeah, I think it was very much the foul. I think 100% yellow card. You look at it, that is a yellow card foul. There was no argument there. But you've just been given that. Just walk away. Just walk away.
Totally. I mean, look, the sad thing is both of these red cards should have been and could have been avoided because the second red card, there was a hair pull. And it's so weird how many times we've talked about this, Allie, but I'm going to just describe a motion that we've talked about a lot. You find your hand in somebody's hair and you move through it in open palm. You move through it open palm, or you find yourself in somebody's hair, you pull it back open palm. What are we not doing when you find your hand in somebody's hair? Making a fist. Because then that player moves, it looks like you pulled the hair, you're off the field. So both of these red cards could have been avoided. Luckily, Portland did score 2 goals before going down to 9 players, so they were all set there. I don't know, if you're Seattle and you have 35 minutes up 2 players and you still can't score, how are you feeling?
I was going to say, I think this is a lot about Seattle. This has got to say a lot about Seattle, that you could not capitalize on your rivals, and this is such a fierce and storied rivalry. It has been, it's the one that when you first get into the NWSL, everybody talks about Portland, Seattle. It is the rivalry. And others have come since, and you can't capitalize on that. Shame on you.
I'm going to say something that's going to upset a lot of people, and I'm not saying that I believe this. I'm merely posing it as a question that nobody is asking, because rightfully so, nobody wants to ask it. And I don't want to ask it, but I'm gonna. Does Laura Harvey need a fresh start?
Ooh. The beloved and sainted Laura Harvey.
Now, I'm not saying she needs to be fired. I'm not saying she hasn't done an impeccable job with this squad. I'm saying that sometimes a fresh start can, be the fire that we need as, you said, we can say that. We say that all the time for players. It's the same for managers as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, to be honest, I have thought it for a little while, especially when she came out and said that she used ChatGPT for her tactics last season.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought that was funny. But in putting it in this context, I see what you're saying.
Yes, things. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it settles. I don't want to because I like her. Maybe, I don't know, is there a team she can go to in the NWSL?
Oh, there's always a team looking in the NWSL. We know this. There might be a head coaching job open mid-season for all we know.
Okay, who's yours? Is yours Portland too? Or
I totally forgot I didn't answer that. That I'm most shocked by in a positive way. Houston have surprised me. I mean, I think people might scoff at some of their results, but I don't think that they should. Obviously, they beat Boston 3-0 this past weekend. Last weekend, they took down San Diego, though, and I think a lot of people looked at that and thought that if they played that 9 more times, San Diego would win 9 out of those 9 times. And so 9 out of 10 total. I don't think so. I think that they're not being given the credit that they deserve. I think that they're a lot better than people think that they are. Also, Angel City has really impressed me. They've come out strong out of the gates.
Okay, let's go take it in a different direction. Who are you surprised by in a not good way? Who's had a rocky start to the season?
Can I have multiple answers, or do I need to only have one?
You can have you can have as many answers as you want.
We talked about Kansas City. Obviously, we'll put them on the list. Basically, take the top of the table from last season, essentially. So Kansas City, Washington Spirit, and Orlando have certainly surprised me. A lot of people as well have had San Diego picked to either be at the top of the table or win the entire championship this year. I never thought that highly of them, to be totally frank, but then I did think that they were going to at least contend for the Shield. They have surprised me in a very negative way. Like they have such a high potential. They're just not even close to it, though. What about you?
I would agree. I think, yeah, it's weird in the fact that, the top half, specifically for me, Washington, I will have to say. I think Washington was so close last season and they really took it to Kansas City. All season, it was very close. We saw Orlando drop off a little bit last season compared to their previous winning year. So Orlando, I'm less surprised by in the fact that they've dropped as they have. But Washington really were getting it, and they were getting their players back. And we really saw it. And then the fact that they've just been
They've been and it's not just the score lines though, right? Because like they lost. That's what it is. They lost 1-0 to Portland. That was surprising. We were like, what's going on with Washington? Well, it turns out Portland's actually a lot better than we thought that they were. Okay, now you look at this past weekend. But the problem in that game was the Washington Spirit had 0 shots on goal against Portland. 0 shots on goal. You're not going to score. So what's the name of the game for the next game? It's to get shots on target and make them good ones. Okay, they did that. They drew with Racing Louisville 2-2, who, by the way, I said before the season started, I'll say it again, Racing Louisville are going to fly under the radar all year. They are fantastic. I think that they will be in the playoffs, and I think that they can do a lot of damage in the playoffs. I think that they're a great team. So you look at who Washington have played, and you're like, actually, they've played 2 really great teams. They lost 1. They drew 1. Okay. But you got to look a little deeper in terms of how has the play been. And it's not the Washington Spirit that we expected, like you said. I really only want to say something, I guess, about San Diego here, and that is actually somewhat similar to Washington Spirit. San Diego had a problem last year, very Jonas Eidevall problem, of keeping a lot of possession, not capitalizing on any opportunities. That was the problem. That was the problem then in week 1, in game 1, when they lost to Houston. And they were able to get 2 goals against Utah this past weekend. In moments, they looked brilliant, and in moments, they looked like a team that could lose to Utah. And that's not disrespect to Utah. That's just like there's such a discrepancy in how they play sometimes. And when they're on, and that high press is to die for, and that front Brazilian 3 is insane. And they have Leah Godfrey, who is probably going to be Rookie of the Year. I was thinking it would be Jasmine Ike. The unfortunate news on Monday is that Jasmine Ike has torn her ACL. She's out for the season. Poor Denver, poor Jasmine. Hearts break for her. I think Leah Godfrey, just to put it back on a positive, will be Rookie of the Year in the midfield for San Diego Wave. I think she's such a bright spot. They've had shaky moments. They've had positive moments. There have been more shaky moments than positive, and that's why I'm kind of shocked by them in a negative way. But if they can build throughout the season, I see why people put them at the top. Scary. Okay, real quick, top of the table. There are 3 teams that are 2-0 with 6 points, and it's Angel City, Houston Dash, and Portland Thorns, and they sit at the top. There are two teams who have won one and lost one with 4 points underneath them. That's North Carolina and Gotham. And then a slew of teams that have one win and a loss. Kansas City, San Diego, Bay, Seattle, Chicago all sit underneath. And then at the lonely bottom with just 1 point is Racing, Denver, Orlando, Washington. And the only two teams that have yet to tally a point on the table, it's Utah and Boston. Allie, final question of our NWSL chat. Is there any team you want to chat about that we haven't chatted about that you have something to say?
I just want to say about the new teams that we've got. So we've got Boston and Denver. I think there's a lot of people who are going to be concerned. Obviously, as you said, you've got Boston right down the bottom. They haven't managed to mark any points. I just want people to not panic because I've watched both these teams now. And I do think there is something there with both of them. But this is their first competitive season. I would stake good money that they will be a comfortable mid-table teams this season. I genuinely do. I don't think they're going to be, chasing for the Shield. One of them might squeeze a playoff place, but I think they will be comfortably mid-table. I don't think you need to worry about them. Yeah, if I'm a Utah fan, I would be worried.
Oh, I don't think that Utah has to worry, actually. I'm going to say I don't think either of Denver or Boston is going to squeeze a playoff spot, and that's not a bad thing. It's very, very unusual for a team in their inaugural season to do that. So I think they'll hang out at the bottom, and that's okay. I think that the Denver will build as they get Lindsay Horan in July after the French season ends.
Heaps, not Horan. Stop dead naming her.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, apologies for using your dead name, Lindsay Heaps.
You missed it when you weren't here because I refused to call the championship WSL 2 and I went, I'm very liberal. I will only dead name.
I don't even know what I was saying. Lindsay Heaps. When they get Lindsay Heaps back, it'll be a lot better. I think the combination of Jasmine Ike and Lindsay Heaps in the midfield would have been absolutely killer, and that would have maybe allowed for potentially a playoff run, but that's no longer. We wish you a fast recovery, Jasmine Ike. In terms of Utah, I think that I'll make it quick. They're better than meets the eye. They're better than the stats show. I think Jimmy Coonrats has done an amazing job with this team. He took over and there was a long way to go. And they were missing a lot of key players, two very key midfielders who are out on international duty with Japan. They will add to the midfield. They have a billion injuries, including to their starting keeper. And I think as everybody starts to get healthy, I think that we'll start to see a good Utah team that, dare I say, will contend for a playoff spot. I'm not going to say that they're going to get one, but I'm going to say that they're going to hang out in that 9, 10 spot and maybe vie for the 8th spot or something like that. I think it'll be a lot better than last season for them. So I think there's hope. Let's go around the world. Around the world, around the world. To France, Lyon are 16 points clear at the top of the table, having extended their lead with a 2-0 win over Fleury. Nantes remain in second after their win against Strasbourg, and Paris FC are third after their win this weekend.
To Scotland, and it was the weekend of derbies in the SWPL in both Edinburgh and Glasgow. It was Hibs who took the win over Hearts in the Edinburgh derby, and it was Rangers who won 1-0 over Glasgow City. However, neither result affects the table as Glasgow City and Celtic remain in the top 2 spots.
And to Mexico, it is tight at the top of the table in La Liga MX, something we have said before, as just 6 points separate first and 6th place. Monterrey remain in the top spot with 33 points, and then Tigres, Pachuca, and Club America all tied for 30 points. 13 games played, and the playoff places are still just about anybody's.
And finally to Spain, and Barcelona remain top of the league after an emphatic win over Bilbao. Real Madrid remain in second after their win this weekend. Atletico, however, despite also getting 3 points, climb only to 6th.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an Enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Over now to the WSL, and just got a few talking points because this could be a huge weekend. Manchester City could claim the title this weekend with a win over Manchester United. It's big.
Say it ain't so, Allie. Say it ain't so. No, we're happy for them. We're happy for a new victor is what we're happy for. Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, newish, but yes.
Well, sure, newish. Not Chelsea, not the team that won last year. Basically, we've had a lot of Chelsea recently. Quick fun fact though: when was the last time Manchester City women won the title?
I want to say it was like 2018, 2019.
I think it's 16. It's been a decade. Nick Cushing was the head coach, the now current head coach of Denver Summit. So it's been a whole decade. Now it's not done yet, but should we go on and assume that it's going to happen, whether it's this weekend or not, Allie?
I would say, unless something absolutely disastrous happened, like I know they've had a couple of shaky results, but unless they continue to have terrible results, I think it's pretty much a given that this title is Manchester City's.
Yeah. This weekend is extra special, though, because they could do it during the Manchester Derby in Manchester United Stadium, which would be, I mean, if I'm City, I want nothing more than to do it this weekend in that fashion. And if I'm United, I want nothing more than to just make sure we push that off one more weekend. What do you think's going to happen?
The way they're playing, I do think Manchester City will clinch it this weekend. I think that
United are playing well. They just don't have the results necessarily to show for it.
But they're not, though. And this is the thing.
I know. We talked about this with the cup final against Chelsea. And they played well. They just didn't score. But you made a good point. That means that's just like, you know what? Well, that it is the point of the game. So fair enough.
And since then, they couldn't beat relegation fodder West Ham. That was a 0-0, which, as they pointed out, in the last 3 times they've gone to Dagenham, they've not been able to get a win. It's always been a draw there. I think there's just the momentum is no longer hitting Manchester United at the moment. And I think Manchester City, they had a bit of a blip against Aston Villa, absolutely came back thumping Spurs. It was 5-2. I'm not saying it's going to be a thumping for Manchester United this weekend, but I do think it will be a loss for Manchester United.
Unfortunately, I do think you're right. Okay, let's talk about the table really quick because Manchester City sit at the top, as we just talked about. Underneath them are Manchester United. City have 46 points right now. United sit right below them in second place with 38 points. Chelsea sit right below United, just 1 point below United with 37 points. Arsenal sit in fourth. They have 2 games in hand over all 3 of those teams that I just named, and basically everybody else in the table. They have 35 points, so they're 2 points below Chelsea, 3 points below United, but 2 games in hand. I'm going to stop there. I'm sorry, Tottenham fans. I'm not going to include you in this title talk race. So let's talk about these 4. Because when you look at this table and you see that Arsenal sit 2 points behind Chelsea with 2 games in hand, you start to worry for Chelsea. And then you look at their roster and you see how many people are injured, which is what we want to talk about. And you start to worry even a little bit more because they are obliterated right now.
As are Arsenal.
I would say not as much as Chelsea, though. I saw an article today. Chelsea had 8 players that were able to turn up to play in full in training. That's not enough players to train with. That is absurd for a WSL side that, by the way, is supposed to play a Champions League game this week and next week and play in the WSL. It's not possible. What do you do? Where do you sit if you're Chelsea? Tell me your thoughts on Chelsea.
I think if I'm Chelsea, my focus would be on guaranteeing Champions League for next season because at the moment it's not. Because at the moment it's not, because of the teams around them, Manchester United, Arsenal, because I believe it's going back to being the top 2 teams in the UK will get automatic, and then the third team, as usual, will have to qualify, and if they don't, then they're going to go into this new Europa League, which is a whole thing. So if I was Chelsea, I'm going to want to focus on making sure that we get Champions League next season, and the only way to do that is either focus on the league or win this year's Champions League.
Okay. There's a lot of injuries. We should start to list them all. But specifically before we get into the injuries, I want to talk about 2 players in particular who have been in the news in the rumor mill. And that's Millie Bright and Sam Kerr, because they have been rumored to be leaving Chelsea after this season. I don't think it's a surprise. Like, Emma Hayes left, and we knew that thus would begin the exodus of the players who signed at Chelsea to play under Emma Hayes. That's how it goes. Contracts are up, and it's rumored that Millie Bright will go to another WSL club. It's rumored that Sam Kerr wants to go to the NWSL. Thoughts on both of these, Allie?
I'm surprised that Millie Bright's going to want to go somewhere else. To be honest, I think she'd retire.
I think so too, honestly. I was surprised at that.
Genuinely, I think she's called time on her England career. She's not getting the minutes as much at Chelsea because she is injured, and she keeps getting injured.
Back-to-back injuries to back-to-back, just can't stop getting injured, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I personally think that Millie Bright will call it a day at the end of this season, and you know what? Fair play. What a career she's had. Yeah. Sam Kerr is an interesting one because obviously she's got a young family. Her partner is, or wife now, because they are married, is American. So she could go to the NWSL, or she could go back home to Australia and go play in the A-League. Both are open to her. I don't know where she would go in either.
I said I think she'll go to Boston because Christy's from Boston. But you never know. I was joking. Unfortunately, poor Tim, who is a Chicago fan, I was like, the only thing we know for sure is Sam Kerr ain't going back to Chicago. Sorry, Chicago fans. I just think that there's too much there for her. There's too much history. Okay, back to the Chelsea injury crisis. This is an article that got released on Monday, which is the day we're recording. Spoiler alert. Sonia Bonpastor has insisted in a press conference that Chelsea are actually not going through a crisis despite missing several first-team players for their first Champions League game with Arsenal, which is on Tuesday. If you're listening to this on Wednesday, it was yesterday. So Chelsea are going to the Emirates, obviously, on Tuesday for the first leg. And this side has just been riddled with injuries. Millie Bright, we just mentioned. Natalie Bjorn, Myra Ramirez has been injured. Neve Charles, all injured, won't be available. Sam Kerr and Ellie Carpenter, while they are not injured, they won't be available for the first leg because they are coming back from international duty with the Matildas for the Asian Cup. So there's 2 more players that won't be available. I mean, it is looking down and out in the title race. It just is.
Yeah, I would be very, very concerned if I was Chelsea.
All right. Chelsea will take on Arsenal Tuesday, Champions League. That will have already happened. It will be in the past when you're listening to this. Arsenal also a little bit battered, not as bad as Chelsea. Leah Williamson won't be available. We'll see what happens. Okay. That will lead us very nicely into our last segment, Allie. So let's do it.
Yes. So, of course, it is the meat part of the Champions League. We're in the quarter finals and we have got some great match ups that are happening. So we thought we'd go through it with you, but also look at it in comparative to where these teams are in their league to see if that can give you an indication of which way these games are going to go. So the first game will be Wolfsburg versus Lyon. Now, Wolfsburg are currently second in the Bundesliga and Lyon are currently number 1 in France. Yes, unbeaten. So yeah, this one is, I said it before when we talked about them, but this for me is like quintessential women's Champions League matchup. Yeah, when I think of Women's Champions League, I think of Wolfsburg-Lyon because the amount of times that this was the final, the amount of times that they have played each other. But that does make it a great matchup. But this makes it a great matchup because because I think, and I said it before, I think this is Lyon's year to lose it.
You did say that, and I am stuck on it. I can't get on board with it. I know they're undefeated, but I keep coming back to the French league and how it's not that strong. And PSG and Paris FC are usually their big competition. Haven't really been. But it's not because Lyon have gotten that much better. It's because that the other two teams have fallen off. So I can't get on board with it. I'm sorry. I simply can't. I mean, you can never count out Lyon, period, the end, right? That's just the type of team that they are, and that's how integral they are to the Champions League. But you can say the same about Wolfsburg. It sounds like you think it's Lyon that's going to take this, though.
I do think it's Lyon because Lyon have been consistently strong this season all the way through. They have, like I said, they're running away with the French league. They have been consistent in the way they've played. Wolfsburg have been so up and down that they've had to work their way up to second because they were down in like 7th at one point.
Up and down is a crazy thing to say about a team that's only lost 3 games in their league. They've lost 3 games.
But look at their league position. They were 7th at one point, and then they've had to work their way back up to second.
I think it's Pop. That's going to carry them through. In her final year in the green. I have a hard time betting against a German team. I think this league is a lot stronger than people think it is, at least the top half of it. And I think they face stronger competition than Lyon on a week-to-week basis. I think it might carry them through. I hope I don't eat my words.
We shall see. We shall see. And then the next matchup is Barcelona versus Real Madrid, who are first and second in La Liga. This one, they play each other a lot.
Yeah, they do. They do. I mean, these matchups were like given to us from the soccer gods. Look at what we have here. Like an epic Lyon-Wolfsburg Champions League battle. And then you get the Spanish teams going against each other. You get the English teams going against each other. It's fantastic. Listen, we'd be stupid to not pick Barcelona, though. We can just move along from that. Because, yes, I know I made the argument that, for sure, Real Madrid could maybe snag some. Yes, they could. They could. If it was like a 1-game final, sure. We're talking 2 legs here. It's Barcelona.
The next one is Manchester United versus Bayern Munich. Now, that is second in their league versus first in their league. Again, Bayern are undefeated and are looking really strong.
And you just said that really United haven't been showing up of recent.
No, they haven't. I do think there is definitely something that's not quite right there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, United. It was a great first Champions League run, but I think Bayern might be a little too much for you to handle. But we'll find out. I know last time we chatted about this, Allie, you were saying that the home fixtures and the away fixtures would favor one over the other. Where do they, and I don't remember which matchup you were talking about here. Where is this matchup being played first? It's in Manchester, right?
It's first, yeah. Manchester,
because you're going to it.
I am.
Okay, so
I will be there.
And correct me if I'm wrong, according to you, and probably most English football fans, you actually want to be home second. So United not only have to play the undefeated Bayern, but they have the worst way to do it.
Yes, the worst way round.
Okay, we'll find out. Enjoy the Champions League game. That's going to be epic.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And then the final one is the All-English tie. And I feel really weird saying this, but it's the lowest ranked tie in terms of league performance because it's fourth versus third.
Yeah. I'm really excited for this game. I know we just talked about how many injuries both teams have, but I'm still so excited for this game. And it's at the Emirates, which is actually, according to Allie, in favor of Chelsea. But I do think Arsenal are rolling because it's 2 teams that know each other so well. And when that happens, you never really know. Obviously, I'm going to pick Arsenal right now, though. What do we think is going to happen? What do you think, genuinely, as a objective third-party individual with no personal interest in the matter, for those who get the reference? Shout out to you.
I don't know. I think it's going to be close both ways. I think, I think one team will nick a goal in the first tie, and then it's always play for in the second tie.
You think it'll be 1-0 in League One in Leg 1?
Yes.
That's crazy. You think about 1-0? I think there's going to be at least 2 goals in this game. Wow. I guess we'll find out. I'm so excited for this week now. Listen, everybody. It's okay that there's not March Madness on because we have Champions League. Okay? So when you can't watch March Madness, you watch Champions League. That's what we're going to do this week. It's okay. We have sports to watch. Call out of work, sit on your couch, watch them. It's a big 2 weeks here. March Madness and Champions League. We did it. This is about the time in the year where we have to make our own brackets, Allie. So let's do that. We'll post them on social media. We'll make them from these matchups all the way through the final and pick our final. All right. And I think that's it for us here at the Women's Soccer Show. As always, tune in every week. Every Wednesday, we are here talking about the world of women's football. I've been Sarah.
And I've been Allie.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.